Hello and welcome to this week's Four Ps podcast. This week we have a very, very special guest, very kind person. Love talking to her. Her name is Twee Shaw. She has a story that is it's just her story goes from, if you look at it, it goes from Vietnam and then it goes to Australia and then it goes to Australia again. She has lived a life where there has there have been a lot of injustices with her. Let's just put it that way. And she has learned to overcome those injustices. She is a fantastic person. She is a single mother. She is doing her thing. She is also the founder and she is the advocate for the Fire Revolution. You're going to love what this program is all about. There's a lot of other things that she does, but we will come back and let her tell you what those things are when we come back. Her name is Twee Shaw. Glad to have her on the program. We'll be right back right after this.
From the pain of losing a child to the courage of veterans finding new purpose. From the grief of friends and family gone too soon to the redemption of those who've fallen and risen again. Each story reminds us that even in our darkest moments, there is light. Even in heartbreak, there is healing. Even in loss, there is love, because these are stories of loss. Stories of struggle, stories of hope.
Welcome back to the Four Ps podcast. Today I have an individual, and I want to start out by saying how I met this individual. We have a mutual friend, and Joe Jackson. We always talk about Joe Jackson. Joe Jackson is like a connection. She's like the ultimate connection to everything. Anyway, I started following Twee Shaw on Facebook through a mutual connection, and I started reading her post and seeing what she had to say. I did not know her background. I did know that she was very inspiring and she had great wise words to say, and so I was just following and following and following. It wasn't until recently I found out who this person really was, and it actually sent me to it sent my admiration for this individual to another level. And it was because, she has a lot of strength. She has gone through so much. It is Twee Shaw. She is from the great city, or I say the region, the area of Hobart, Tasmania. But she lives there now. But when you hear her story, that's not where she's from. She's also the founder of the Fire Revolution, and there's so much synergy between the Four Ps movement and the Fire Revolution that I really want you to hear her story. Twee, I could talk about this all day long and you wouldn't have a chance to interview. So I will go ahead and say, welcome to the program. How are you doing?
Amazing. Thank you so much, Trunnis, for having me. I'm so excited. So excited.
Well, thank you for being here. First of all, we were just talking a little bit before the interview. I am in rainy, very, very rainy North Carolina, United States of America. And you are in, from what I found out, rainy
Hobart.
Tasmania, Hobart.
Yes.
So now it is here in the United States. We are now. You might as well say it's winter. It's very. We are still in the very last couple days of fall, but the weather is not saying that. We are in the very first days of winter. What's the season where you are right now?
So it is. What is it? Spring.
Spring. Okay. All right. Yes. So it is getting better there. How is the weather where you are right now, other than the fact I already mentioned that it's rainy?
Yeah, we've had. The weather is probably around 16, 17 degrees.
It's not bad.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I can't. It's great. It's a beautiful place. So blessed to be here. And I think living in Sydney, actually, Trunnis, made me a bit soft. So ever since I've come back after living in Sydney, I just can't deal with the cold like I used to.
I understand. I completely understand. I used to live in Buffalo, New York, where it was super, super cold, lot of rain. A lot of snow. And then I come down here and it's just like, oh my gosh, it's 40 degrees outside. I really don't know what I'm going to do. So it's just so odd. You know, again, I introduced you what you do. Can you tell our audience exactly what you do with the fire movement, fire revolution?
Absolutely, and thank you so much for asking. So, I have a revolution for ambitious women, and the idea is to help them become FIRE. So, the acronym of FIRE, which is fearless, independent, resilient, and empowered. And for me, it has been a labour of love in the sense that I have overcome things that have plagued me for most of my life, which has been guilt and shame. And so these were the two things that I really wanted to help women to feel liberated from, because I
Hmm.
know how heavy that can feel. And for me, I've always had an affinity to fire. And at the same time, whilst it's been a fear and a fascination, it's also been a healing and a forging. And it's part of my process. And
Hmm.
it is a way to help women safely ignite the inner strength that they've always had that has been dimmed for a variety of reasons, and to basically give them the tools to empower themselves so that they can redefine success based
Hmm.
on what lights them up rather than what society or their family or friends or partners tell them they should. And it's about being able to connect with that inner fire and being able to trust that, because that was something that I really struggled with.
Hmm. You've done so much in your lifetime. You've been through so much in your lifetime, and yet you are still out there inspiring people to do to do better things and to exceed and to hit the levels that they may not feel that they can hit. What can you give us an example of what, not an example, but can you give us maybe a short story of how you got to what you're doing now?
So actually, Joe was present when I had my big defining moment. And that was actually at a Richmond Inn event that I had had such severe anxiety about even attending. But there was just something about having been around all these phenomenal people and just feeling like I don't belong here,
Hmm.
and just wanting to run for the hills. But then, thankfully, someone saw something in me that I didn't even know existed, took me under their wing, brought me in, and was like, "You're staying with me. You know, I can see something in you." And during that time of being with people who were just so understanding and supportive, I think it just broke down so many barriers for me that I had very carefully constructed around myself to keep myself safe.
Hmm.
And in that, couple of days, I was able to really start thinking, is it actually possible? Here's all this evidence of what's possible. Here are all these stories. What if? What if? And I think that's that curiosity that I've always had, and something that my mum's always taught me is, curiosity and wonder. And, my mum, was a former magician. So, that's her whole world, is creation and magic and belief and making things real. So, I think for a long time I had thought that I was too old for that, and that I was way past my prime, and that I was too broken and all those things. And because of history of having fallen many times, gotten up, but still not to the level that I wanted myself to be at or that I had experienced before, I doubted myself. And in that room, and surrounded by, I think, maybe 300 people that attended, we were given challenges like to try and get money from a complete stranger. And, I'm very competitive. So, when I commit to doing something, I have to see it through. And the fact that I could get money from a complete stranger to go give me cash, to come back with me, it just reminded me that, hey, maybe I can do this. And there was a challenge to actually go live on Facebook. And at this point, my Facebook was private. I had been in hiding. I had been going by a different name for privacy reasons. And the idea of being visible, wow, my nervous system, Trunnis, was just in overdrive. Like, I had ladies there holding me because I was shaking so bad. And I remember I couldn't even really stand up. Like, I was just shaking so bad. And one of the emotion coaches, Jenny, she was holding me up with one hand, holding my phone, turned it on, and out of nowhere, I feel like that was my heart talking for the first time. And when I was put on the spot, it was, I can't remember exactly what I'd said, and I never watched back the video, but I remember it was something along the lines of, I'm embracing my Xena warrior. Xena being the name that I had been going by, and that I was bringing out my warrior. I was embodying this identity that had kept me safe, and that my mission was to liberate women from guilt and shame and to help them feel fully lit up.
This is something that and this is, I'm ad-libbing, I know, which is something I do a lot on this podcast, but I am definitely doing it this time. I'm actually saying it because I wasn't going to go this way. You talk a lot about women and guilt and shame, knowing your backstory and knowing that your backstory comes with a lot of abuse. Not only is it abuse, it comes from even spousal abuse. What is it that causes women who are victims of, and I'm going to say domestic abuse, to feel guilt and shame? I mean, they are not the ones that did the wrong. What you brought that up a couple times, and obviously it is a theme throughout. What are some of the things that bring that up?
So for me, I think because it started as a child, it became part of my wiring. And as a child, I was blamed, because of how my hair felt or how it smelled or how I looked or how my voice sounded, so all the things that I learnt to control. And I think becoming an adult and, where I had success in business was through negotiation and using language and connecting with people. And yet those were the things that I would get into trouble for, for creating connections with people when I wasn't even looking at them, different things that would create reasons to show that I was at fault. And so I think it was more that it brought back all those other feelings of, it's my responsibility, I must have done something wrong, I didn't do enough for them to be able to love me, or I failed them in some way, I wasn't able to heal them with love. For me, a lot of my journey, even my ex-husband, when we met, we had, I think, about 6 deaths in the first month of us being together, of people really close to us. And that bonded us in even more trauma. And I blame myself, even though he cheated, even though he did all these things, I was like, well, he did that because I wasn't enough. I wasn't doing the things to keep him happy enough, or I wasn't a good enough wife for him to be proud of, or I let him down in some way. So for me, I always saw people's behaviour as an outcome of multiple factors, not just, something that was to do with them. I've never been able to see it so black and white.
Wow, it's funny that I hear that, because you often see that, and it goes past. Obviously, you're saying it right now. It goes past the abuse. It goes on for ever, even it goes on for a long time, even after the abuse is stopped. And now you have a movement, and I'm going to use this word, and I'm using this in a positive way because it needs to be done. You are now rewiring people that come into this movement to say that you're not to feel guilt and shame, that it is not your fault. It's their fault. And I'm going to tell you, you're right. It is their fault. I mean, anybody who's going to go ahead and go into an abusive cycle in any type of relationship, it's their fault. They have the problem. But now you are doing that. What are some ways that you do this through your movement?
So for me, I mean, I did a science degree. So I think on one hand, I'm very emotional in terms of I'm very empathetic. I take on people's emotions and I want to basically transmute it and then give it back to them as something totally different. But at the same time, having, I guess, the education, the background that I had, I'm very analytical as well. And so that's how I've coped, my superpower growing up was dissociation. And so even though I was really good at reading people, they were all kind of patterns. They were all kind of not so much intuitive. They were more observatory, like observations. Part of my journey has been actually learning to listen to my internal compass a lot more and learning to trust myself more. So that's one of the things that I work with my clients on is the self-trust. And when you trust yourself and it actually allows your nervous system to relax. So those two work very hand in hand in the sense that, you need a level of nervous system calm to be able to even go there. But one thing that I struggled a lot with in terms of therapy is that people wanted me to keep reliving things. And that's never been something that has worked for me. I had really severe complex PTSD. The things that I used to do, the number of times I almost died because I put myself at risk terrified me because I was highly medicated, I was acting out of character, and my biggest fear was not dying. It was actually that the people I loved would think that I had ended it because of I couldn't cope or that I was giving up on them. And that's when I made the decision, when I almost got hit by log trucks on a highway.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had left my home, had no idea that I'd left my home, and it was when my phone vibrated that I woke up and I just felt the wind, and I was in the middle of a highway with trucks beeping, and I don't even know how I got back to the side of the road, but I answered the phone and I was crying. And in that moment I was like, I could have died, and people would have blamed it on all the drugs in my system. They would have blamed it on, me having been in so much care for mental health. They wouldn't have known that and that's when I said no more medication. I need to work on this.
Absolutely.
And so my message for women is that you don't need to relive trauma in order to heal from trauma.
Beautiful. I first of all, the log truck thing actually did kind of freak me out. I mean, that is one of my biggest fears, is to get hit by a big truck. It really is. I mean, it's just like, that is, yeah, you definitely were, it was divine intervention on that one for sure. Absolutely. That is, man. Um, You also have another cause that you do promote. It's a nonprofit called Engendered Equality. Can you
Yes.
tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So my whole experience, because I wasn't the typical victim, meant that I was struggled to be believed. And I get emotional talking about this because I felt like I'm doing all that I can. You know, I think in 1 year I did 37 parenting courses because I kept getting told I was a bad parent, that I was the problem, that the perpetrator couldn't be the problem because he was in a different state, because they said that a 3-year-old wasn't capable of having PTSD, which is what the paediatrician said. And so for me, I just was constantly looking for answers. And Engender was a very small organisation, but the people there made me feel human for the first time. I mean, Trunnis, I don't know, I haven't shared this with you, but there was one time when I was pregnant and I was copying abuse. And I remember just saying to someone, I am scared that I can't connect with my child because I am disassociating so much, you know. Mm-hmm. I didn't explain that it was because I was avoiding pain, but I said that when I think about it, that sense of freedom and lightness is something that I just keep wanting more of.
Wow.
And the medical professional called the abuser and told them to take me to hospital. And that was when I got cut off from all medical support. And so I learnt not to be able to trust the people that were supposed to help me because they kept letting me down. And Engender really fought for me. And really, you know, like they provided reports to support me. They provided evidence. You know, they were there for me when I felt so alone. You know, I hadn't been able to tell my family. I was so ashamed. I couldn't tell my family. I was the eldest and I was like a quasi-parent to my siblings. And so I was raised to be the eldest, the example, the role model, and I just couldn't let them down. So I held it all together. I was also dealing with the grief of losing my dad and knowing how fragile my mum was. And so having their support, and I remember even saying to them, Trunnis, you know, I don't even feel like I deserve your help because I'm not in immediate distress right now. I've got a roof, I've got a warm bed, you know, like give my place to someone else. But I think they saw something in me as well, and they saw how hard I was trying and just their commitment to continuing the process with me, you know, whilst I was going through court, whilst I was, you know, constantly under attack from all different angles. That is why I am who I am now. And what I love so much about them, and there's so much to love about them, but the fact that they use the information to lobby and to educate. You know, they create programs that go into companies to teach people about the signs. You know, they are doing so much in terms of speaking, like the CEO, Alina, she speaks publicly at as many opportunities as she can to sort of raise understanding and awareness based on lived experience. You know, not just your standard victims, but also women who are dying in prisons. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's the idea that it's exhausting trying to pull people and save people that are being pushed in the water. And what they're doing is a two-pronged approach. They're both helping people that need that crisis support, but they're also going upstream and really trying to influence change, so that the problem becomes less. Whereas my experience is that some services are dependent on people staying stuck and dependent on the problems continuing to validate their position, which is controversial for me to say, but it's based on, who are the people that are going to tick the boxes so that we get our funding. People like me wouldn't have ticked that. So
Absolutely.
that's why I am so passionate about giving them space to be supported and opportunities to be supported.
Well, I will say this. I have a book coming out on January 19th. It is called Lessons from My Father. A lot of people know, if you read my brother's book, you know some of the things that happened. You know what the kind of household we lived in. I'm kind of finishing the story in that book, Lessons from My Father. Abuse is a horrible thing. Okay, it is. There's no excuse for it. One day, and I'm going to share a story. One day, my father said to me, do not ever get arrested for, and I want to tell you the story in its completeness. Okay, my father sat there and told me, I was probably about maybe 14 years old. My father said, if you ever go to jail for drugs or for stealing, do not call me. I'm not getting you out. He says, as a matter of fact, he said, I would get you out of jail for murder before I got you out of jail for drugs or stealing. And I looked at him, I was like, what? He goes, yeah, because you may have had a reason to murder. You never have a reason to ever steal or do drugs. I'm going to take that a step farther. Okay. If you ever get arrested or if you ever get caught for domestic violence, don't call me. Don't even ask for my sympathy, because you're not going to get it. I am not, there is no room for that. You destroy, not only do you destroy your household, but you eventually destroy entire civilizations. You destroy entire societies because of abuse. And so I'm not going to announce it today, but I do have something special that I am going to do for in gender equality. It does have something to do with the book. And I am going to be working very, very closely with Twee to make sure that this happens. It's one book, but I feel my life story and what I went through growing up and what I watched my mother go through growing up. And I do love my father. Don't get me wrong. My father's passed on. I do love him. We've had and if you read the book, you'll see, what we went through. However, I think it is an obligation to reverse the curse, so to speak, and to stop any cycle that has to happen. And so I'm going to use this book to start doing that. And again, more details will be out very soon. But Twee has inspired me. And it's been sitting on my heart it's been sitting on my heart for probably 40 some odd years. And I have an opportunity, and this is what we are going to do. So it is. And like I said,
Trunnis.
you're
And
welcome.
may I just say that hearing this, this birthday, I turned 45, and it was the first time that I set a boundary and said, I don't want anything for my birthday. This is all I want. My birthday wish is to ignite people, ignite forgiveness, ignite choice. And the choice that I want people to choose is freedom. And how they do that is by choosing life, choosing to live, and having the opportunity of you being in my masterclass. And that, I don't know if you realise, but that was such a huge moment for me, because you were part of something so huge for me, and you were evidence for me of what I believed in but didn't realise that could happen so quickly.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
So I just, I just need to give you a great big hug for really making my birthday wish come true and showing me that real men are everywhere. We just need to heal enough to be able to recognize them and to
Thank you.
be strong enough to be able to celebrate them. So, my deepest, deepest gratitude and thanks for all that you do.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. This is not the last you'll hear from Twee. She is actually going to be in a new compilation that I'm putting together called Stories of Miraculous Transformation. And when you hear her complete story, you are going to realize how miraculous this woman actually is. I mean, it is just phenomenal. The strength. And the thing is you see this lady with a really nice smile and well put together. Oh my gosh, man. When you hear her, she is truly a Xena warrior. Truly a Xena warrior. We will be right back right after this.
The 4Ps of You, Expanded Edition by Trunnis Goggins, is a powerful guide to personal growth built on 4 foundational principles: purpose, planning, passion, and persistence. In this expanded edition, Goggins shares real stories of trials and tribulations, his own and those of others, to inspire readers to reflect, reset, and rise. With added insights and practical exercises, this book empowers you to navigate life's challenges, unlock your potential, and live with greater intention and impact. The 4Ps of You is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and worldwide wherever books are sold.
Welcome back to this final segment of the 4Ps podcast. I obviously am your host, Trunnis Goggins. Hope you got a lot out of Twee's interview. She is an individual who has gone through abuse in so many different stages and so many different levels. She has gone through it as an employee. To be honest with you, when you hear her story, it is quite. It is. I mean, I can make the argument very, very strongly. Make the argument that she was mistreated when she was a refugee from Vietnam, and she was mistreated by the people who brought her here, or brought her to Australia, not here. And her family, again, it was the grace of God that got her rescued, so to speak. She talks about her late father, the one that she had in Australia, and she talks fondly of him. There were other situations where she was just dealt a very, very, very difficult hand. But what she has done is she has learned to overcome it. And she is now out there helping others overcome what they, the pain of abuse, the pain of the things that she went through. And, before I get into the story that I want to share, I want to talk to you about a woman just recently here in the Carolinas. She was released from prison. She should never have gone to prison in the first place. She was a battered spouse, and she killed her abuser. She killed him. And I know that there are probably people on this podcast that are pacifists and, no, all life's precious. And yes, all life is precious. But if life is beating your ass, okay, there are consequences to that. And I hate to say it, and I'm glad she's been released. And I mean, that's just the way I feel. And I don't want to, I'm not going to apologize for it. With that being said, if you read my brother's book and stuff like that, I've gone through, I grew up, lived in a house that, there was abuse. Absolutely. There was abuse. And that abuse was resolved. But it was there. I still think about it sometimes. I know that it does affect, even when there has been a resolution and there has been even reconciliation. It still goes through your mind. It's still traumatic. Even though there is closure, there's still that it's still that violent act that happened. It's still there. Sometimes there are people who get abused and they end up like this woman I was telling you about. They feel they have nowhere to go and they commit the ultimate act. And that's the only way they feel they can get out of it. there is a group in Australia called Engendered Equality, and we talked about it in the interview with Twee. What I am going to be doing with Engendered Equality is I'm going to be helping them out. Um, I have a book coming out called Lessons from My Father. And in that book, you will be reading some of the very raw things that happened in my childhood growing up and how it influenced me in the future. Some of it good, some of it bad. But what I want to do is I want to be able to help those who have or are going through this, and I want them to have a way out. Engender Equality is an organization that helps individuals and gives them a way out. And anything I can do to help them, I will. So my book comes out on the 19th of January. It's called Lessons from My Father. And $1 from every single book sold, I don't care how you buy the book, but $1 from every single book sold will be given to this organization. So worldwide, you know what? Buy the book, please buy the book. But I want you to know that there will be $1 from each of the books sold that will go to Engender Equality, and they are there to help individuals going through domestic violence. If you buy the book through their website, $3 Australian will be given to Engender Equality. $3 Australian will be given to Engender Equality. And the reason why I want to do that, number one, I want you to go to their website, and I also want to help them out in any way I can. So again, like I said, if you are going through an abusive situation, get out as soon as you can. And I know it may sound hard, and I know you may not have resources and this, that, and the other, but I'm going to tell you, I will have resources in the podcast notes here. If there's a way to get out, you know what? Tell somebody that you trust, get out of that situation. Do not end up like the young lady I just told you about here in South Carolina. And you know what? They do need to change the laws a little bit. I think that they do need to change the laws. I mean, to punish the abused is, again, I'm not saying we should take a vigilante approach to this, but I am saying that there needs to be a better way. There needs to be a better way. Next week, we will be back with a much, much, much lighter topic. Somebody broke my brother's pull-up record, and I'm going to talk to him because he's my younger brother, and I don't really appreciate that. Actually, it's fine. That's what records are there. They're there to be broken. We'll be back next week. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.